It's a great honor to welcome, and I want to say, a dear friend of mine and my family, President Trump. President Trump, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Mark. I'm getting ready to leave for a very cold location. I guess record-setting, Iowa. They have record-setting cold, but we're going to do it. We're going to get there one way or the other.
It's hard to leave Florida and go to Iowa in the middle of the winter, isn't it?
It's going to be interesting, but we have great people. I think we're going to have a big turnout despite the weather because, you know, these are real MAGA people, make America great again people, and they're going to be voting. They say that the enthusiasm is greater for us than anybody else, so we should be in good shape.
You know, I on behalf of my family and the family in this audience here, too, we want to pass our deepest sympathies to you and Mrs. Trump and your family on the passing of her mother,
Yes.
who I met once, and her father. And you could see, by the way, Melania would look at her mother. She absolutely adored her. So we're
True.
sorry about that.
Well, thank you. It's tough thing
Let me ask you this.
know.
As I say, I feel like we know each other quite well. I admire so much of what you do and what you've done. And then you watch the media. You're not the same person, according to them. You're not the same person that people around you know, that your supporters know. Let me just do this quickly, and then I'd like you to reply if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
They say you attack democracy. You have never defied a single Supreme Court ruling. Joe Biden has defied 2. They say you attack democracy. You secured the border and followed the immigration laws. Joe Biden violates them. You're being faced now in every instance with these lawsuits, civil and criminal, brought by Democrats in every single case, local, state, and federal. You never did that to your opponent. You never even encouraged that. They talk about an insurrection. The Senate said, no, he didn't commit an insurrection. You're not charged with an insurrection. They have not a syllable of evidence that you encourage people to commit violence. You're not charged with that. And yet they keep saying you did. And yet there you were, the President of the United States, offering the National Guard, not sending the National Guard in to take over the Capitol. And you left office peacefully, and Biden stepped in. They create this whole thing, and now, which is incredibly offensive, you're the only president that has a Jewish son-in-law, a Jewish daughter who converted, Jewish grandchildren, and they call you Hitler. So they create this whole environment, this whole scenario. I want to give you an opportunity to tell millions and millions of Americans how this makes you feel and why you think they're doing this to you.
Well, they're the party of misinformation or disinformation, very similar, not quite exactly the same, but it's 2 words that are very similar. And they are just some terrible people. Look, we have people that I think they really want to hurt our country. When you see open borders where millions and millions of people have come into our country, and many from jails, many are sick, very sick people, and that sickness can be passed on in a lot of cases. And but also mental institutions are being dumped into our country, and nobody is there to do anything about it. You know, we had the safest border in history, and today we have the worst border in history. I believe we have the worst border in the history of the world. I don't think there's never been a country where this has happened to it. This is an invasion of our country. So when you look at what they do and what they say, and they say, I want to be a dictator. You know, I was on your friend, a man who respects you greatly, as everyone else does, is Sean Hannity. And he said, so you don't want to be a dictator, right? I said, no, I want to be a dictator for one day, Sean. One day we're going to become energy independent, and we're going to close up the border. And just one day, then I don't want to be a dictator anymore. Now, I said that obviously joking, but nevertheless, you know, energy independence and close up the border, 2 things that are just, you know, we had the greatest energy program in history, and now we're a laughingstock all over the world. We're getting oil from Venezuela and, frankly, from Iran, and it's ridiculous. And the same thing with the others. So that's what I want. So I said, I want to be a dictator for one day, and then I don't want to be a dictator any longer. But they put me, I want to be a dictator, and then they cut it off. They said, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. And he goes, I want to be a dictator, cut. And, you know, it's so incredible how they lie, and they're evil, and they must hate the country. They must hate the country. You look at elections, the way elections are all over the place, but the election was a horrible thing. Think of it, if the election, and I got millions more votes. We did much better the second time than we did in 2016. In 2020, we did much better, millions and millions of more votes. But bad things happened, and you wouldn't have inflation. Israel would not have been attacked. As you know very well, you've said it many times, zero chance. You know, Iran was broke when I was running things. I wouldn't let other countries buy from them. I said, if you want to buy oil from Iran, you're not going to do business with the United States of America. And China took a pass. Everybody took a pass because they had to do business with us. They made too much money. I also said, I'm going to put tariffs on you, 100% tariffs if you do any business at all. If you buy 1 barrel of oil from Iran, you're going to be taxed at a number like nobody's ever taxed before. So they were broke, and they had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. You know this better than anybody. You've spoken about it. In fact, I saw the other day a Democrat congressman on television say, whether you like Trump or not, they were broke. They had no money for Hezbollah. And this was a big story 3 years ago, how there was no terrorism because Iran had no money because they're the purveyor of terrorism. Iran had no money to give to these other groups, and there were about 28 of them, actually. But people think in terms of Hezbollah, and they think in terms of Hamas, but others, there are many others, countries of terror, and Iran was supplying the money. Now Iran has $200 billion because he took off all the sanctions immediately. I can't even understand, nobody can understand why. There's something going on. He's like a Manchurian candidate. There's something going on that people don't know about. But it's so bad what's happened. So now they have $200 billion. They have so much money. And you look at the Middle East. And the problem is we have the same people that did Afghanistan handling the Middle East. We'll end up in World War III with these people. These are people that don't know what they're doing. So, you know, I let people know, and we did a great job. We had the safest border. I rebuilt the military. We had the biggest tax cuts in history, the biggest regulation cuts in history, even things like right to try, where we're allowed to use space-age medicines, medicines that won't be approved if people are terminally ill. We save thousands and thousands of lives with right to try. We have the right to try a medicine that isn't approved. You're terminally ill. And people would travel to Asia, they'd travel to Europe, they'd travel all over the world to find something. Or if they had no money, they'd go home and they'd die. And I got that passed. They tried to get it for 54 years and got passed through Congress. You had to get it through Congress in this case. And we got it done. We did a lot of things, and they're actually sort of unhappy that we did these things. Space Force, but think of it, we rebuilt the military, and they gave $85 billion of that beautiful brand-new equipment to the Taliban. You know, if you think it's the Taliban. And actually, Afghanistan now is the second largest seller of military equipment in the world because it got 700,000 rifles and guns. They don't need anywhere near that number. They got 70,000 trucks, many of them armor-plated. There's no used parking lot, used car lot in the world that has 70,000 cars, and these are things that cost, in some cases, hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars. 70,000, and they're selling all this stuff, and they're a massive distributor and seller of military equipment. We gave it to them. We left them all of $85 billion worth of equipment. We are run by incompetent people, and I say all the time, and then you take it back, but I say all the time, you take the 10 worst presidents in history, they will not have done the damage and the harm that this man has done. And, you know, we still have 10 months to go, Mark, and 10 months is a lot of time for somebody to destroy our country. We could end up in World War III.
So, I mean, America, listen to how President Trump speaks. Listen to all the areas that he discussed. Joe Biden's incapable of doing any of this. Let me ask you something, Mr. President. When people interview you, friend and foe, do they ever let you finish a thought? My viewing and listening is typically they want to project something into your conversation. They want to put you on defense. They want to create a controversy. They want something like that. Does anybody ever interview and shut the hell up?
Well, you do. As
Me,
an example, you know, I do speak in long, complex sentences and I have a lot of material in each sentence or paragraph, and you do. By the way, you speak that way. I watch with Sean. Sean used to sort of interrupt you a little bit and didn't work out as well, and now he just, I think he sort of just says, all right, go ahead, and you just go on. And, you know, you have a lot of gems in those long statements you make. And, you know, I talk about a lot of different things. We cover a lot of territory. If you have a fertile mind and if you know what you're doing, you cover a lot of territory. No, if Biden, first of all, Biden would never be able to do an interview like this. He can't put two sentences together. He's the worst president in the history of our country. And the happiest man is Jimmy Carter, because he was brilliant as a president by comparison to Biden.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Is there a final statement that you want to make to the people of Iowa why they should turn out in the cold and the snow to vote for you?
Well, I've been very good to the farmers, and I've been very good to Iowa in particular. And with all of the different things I've done, including getting $28 billion for the farmers of the country, $28 billion from, you know where, Mark? From China. Now, you tell me, do you think Biden's going to get $28 billion? I got 28 because they treated our farmers very, very unfairly. But think, we had no inflation. We had the best economy in the history of our country. We had the greatest economy. We had the strongest border in the history of our country. We rebuilt our military. We did everything. Think, the regulations were cut. I cut regulations, which, by the way, were great for our farmers. But we cut regulation greater than anybody's ever cut regulation, including somebody that you admire, Ronald Reagan. So do I. Mm-hmm. And again, the biggest tax cuts, and you know, one of those tax cuts is that farmers won't have to pay estate taxes. They don't anymore. They used to take over. That a father would die, leave the farm to the kids, mother and father, leave it to the kids, and the kids would lose the farm to the bank because they had to go out and pay so much tax and have to mortgage up the farm. You don't have estate tax to pay anymore. That's a phenomenal thing that I did for the farmers, and they know it. And we're way up in the polls. I mean, it's a little disconcerting when you see like 30 degrees below zero, but a lot of people say that our voters, it's actually good for me because our voters have a lot of spirit, more spirit than the other people, and they're going to get out and vote no matter what. So we'll see. But, you know, it's a little cold up there. I start the journey tomorrow morning, and it's a tough journey because I guess they have never seen any cold like they have. The snow and cold, it's pretty rough weather. But I'll get up there one way or the other, and you know, I plan to be up there. I had a big rally tomorrow, but because of the weather, we'll probably have to put that on to Sunday. But we'll get up there, and I think they have great enthusiasm for this election. I think they have great enthusiasm for something that's just very important. It's called Making America Great Again. We're going to make America great again, and they understand it. And we really do. We have a level of spirit that I think very rarely, and you would know this better than anybody, very rarely have people seen anything quite like it.
Well, Mr. President, God bless you. Be safe. You know, these planes in ultra cold weather, they make me very, very nervous.
Yeah.
So make sure they're checking the bolts on the damn doors, will you?
I will promise to do that. I promise I will be doing. I'll do it myself.
Well, God bless you, sir. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. And God bless you, too. Thanks a lot, Mark. Take care.
All right. Be well. See, you heard a side of the president you never get to hear. Because he's relaxed, I'm relaxed. We're not at loggerheads. It's an interview. It's not an inquisition. He's the former president. You treat him with respect. And in that short time span, you learned a lot. Perhaps not anything perfectly new, but you're reminded of things. And, Mr. Producer, doesn't he sound very likable? You love the guy. Very likable. But if you watch the media, this is what I talked about first hour. You let your mind be polluted with these Democrats dressed up as journalists. You let your mind be polluted with the Chris Christies and the others, the disgruntled former employees. Well, then your mind's going to be polluted. But they are not conveying to you who he really is. I am.